Hi everyone, I'm Dennis Foley from Acoustic Fields. We're in Jesse Broman's studio. Let's see if I can recall the dimensions. 12 wide, 10 foot high, and 18 foot long. Close?
Yep.
Okay, so this is right. You know, we have that chart where we have the three groupings of room sizes and volume, and this is right on the edge of the yellow and green area. So it's problematic, which means that you can impact change with a lot of treatment. And we're going to do some shots later on in the video here and show you what Jesse's done. And there's a lot of treatment in here. And we're not there yet. We're just moving in the right direction. But I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the improvements that he's made. He does a lot of mixing and editing in the room, and it's also a room for recording live, and we have a drum set here and all kinds of other instruments. So Jesse's had, I don't know, what, 6 weeks with all the stuff in?
Oh yeah, with the BDA, we've had those for 6 weeks or 2 months now.
Okay.
Yep.
So we got 6 BDA units,
yep.
And then this is our Pro Studio series. So it's not the prettiest in the world, but it's rugged and it works the same, and it's a lot cheaper. So for those of you that don't want to build it yourself, you can buy these, and if you can't afford the finish units, and they are a little expensive because you need multiple units, I understand that, you can look at these because they're at a good price point. Jesse has 6 of those, and he's got a full room of our foam, of our 2-inch foam. So I'm going to introduce Jesse, let him tell you a little bit, 2 or 3 of the changes that he's noticed immediately, and we'll get you to start with the low end first. We always like to start with the low end.
Yep, start with the low end. And honestly, this is probably my 5th studio, including makeshift studios that I've built in the past. I started studio in the basement of where I used to live in Michigan, and I've built 4 or 5 studios since then, trying to get progressively more professional results. But when I moved into this room, this is a purpose designed room to be a rehearsal and recording space. But when I moved in, I realized I need to really get Dennis on my side. I'd watched some of his videos on YouTube, and I knew that to do it right, you got to do it right. There's no way around it. And this room had serious issues from the beginning. I knew it as soon as I walked in. There was muddiness, there was lack of clarity, there was almost like a little man, there's just so many strange frequencies popping out everywhere. And as soon as we started with putting the foam on the sidewalls, and as soon as we put that in, that cleared up the kind of upper mid-range, the honkiness, if you will. But there was still a lot of muddy, low resonance, and I just felt like I wasn't hearing my levels properly when I was mixing. I felt like I was being fooled to a certain extent with lower singers. I noticed I was leveling lower voices too quietly, and I think that was because I was hearing extra muddiness. So after we brought in the BDA, not only did I immediately notice that the muddiness had completely gone. I mean, there's no, I'm telling you, it was a boomy resonance that even a non-engineer, non-musician would have noticed. And so that was immediately gone. But not only that, I feel like leveling instruments and leveling different parts of the frequency spectrum is a lot easier now. It really, vocals, I'm mixing my vocals faster than I ever have before. So it's not only quality, it's efficiency that has improved here as a result. So I couldn't be happier, and I want to continue with what Dennis wants me to do and make it even better. But I'm thrilled right now. So
and that's Jesse just talks about a good part of the foam. Like I always say about our foam, it took me 8 years to figure out the curves. I didn't agree with the curves of all the other foams that were in the marketplace, because I bought them and I tried them and I put them in my office buildings. I put them in corporate boardrooms. I tested them, and they all performed the same. You couldn't tell one company's product from another. And then I started looking at the curves of the foam, and I realized, geez, they're the same. No wonder you can't tell one from the other. So then I thought, is this the curve we want? Is this the right curve for voice? And then I realized it wasn't. And I realized what frequencies we needed to get more of and keep what we were doing in terms of foam, but go for a little bit different rate and level at the 125, 150, 175, 200 range, and beef that up again. We're about 2.5 times more in that range. So that's what gives you that clarity. And the reason for this was because most of the boardrooms that I did the research and development for the foam in were male voices. So I had to get down into the 125 cycle range. I mean, it's male voice. We got to go there. So that's what we did. All foams perform the same after 500 cycles. So we're not really worried about anything above 500 cycles. But that's what you get. And you get a linearity, a smoothness between 125 and 500 that other foams can't give you either. So that's the difference between our foam and other people's foam.
Yeah.
And, foam is a great tool. It's lightweight. It's pretty economical. It's predictable. It's consistent in its performance. And it's just a good acoustical product. It is not a solution to everything. It has its limitations, and you have to realize that and work with it. But once you do, it's pretty cool. Tell me a little bit about the low end when you played drums. Before and after, if you could. Did you play drums before you treated the room?
Yeah. We had drums in here, and I'm a drummer as well as engineer, and I mean, sitting at the drum kit before we made the changes, the kick drum was literally overwhelming. I mean, I felt like even as a drummer, I couldn't. The kick seemed so much louder than everything else. It was hard just playing, let alone, recording was not going to happen. And I knew that when I moved in here that it would probably need a whole lot of treatment to sound good. But, since the BDA, the kick feels more tamed. On recordings, it's possible to get a very well-defined kick now where it would have been impossible before. Even miking from a little bit further away, you still have clarity in the kick, which I think is incredible because it opens up a lot of options for how you can record. It's one thing to be able to get a good recording in a room. It's another thing to be able to put a mic creatively and have it sound good. And we're getting a lot closer to that now. We still need to treat the ceiling. I don't know if you were going to talk about that. We're still going to treat the ceiling after, but for right now, it's a world of difference, honestly.
Well, that's the whole thing about low frequency energy, is getting as much of it managed as you can. You're not going to solve your low end problem. You just can't, because our rooms are too small these days. You're fortunate to have a room that has 30-foot dimensions. Yeah, we have a fighting chance. But if you don't, and most of us don't, you must manage the low end and get it as tight and clean and crisp as you can, obviously within the limitations of the room. Could we get his bass drum to sound real tight and clean in a kind of a small room? Sure. We'd have to make the room a lot smaller by adding technology. Probably another 10 units, another 8 units, we could get the drum really tight. Or we can do something else. We can build a drum platform and put the carbon technology underneath the drums. Low frequency energy is best managed at the source. How much closer to the source can you get than a drum platform? The drums are sitting upon the platform. So you have a perfect situation here with drums to add a low frequency sponge, if you will, underneath the drums. Everything will tighten up. The snares, the tom, the bass, the kick, everything will tighten up. You'll just be amazed at the results. And you've heard our drum platform over at Sacred Ground.
Yep, played on it myself.
Yeah, and that's something you drummers can do rather than do multiple units in your room. Now, you're still going to need a few units for tuning, but the platform really can save you time and money and not need so many units around the drum. So something to think about. We just put that product on our website so you can see it. Anything else you want to talk about? How about fatigue? Are you able to work longer? Is it easier to work in the room?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I guess before putting any treatment in, there was a strong, harsh, screeching frequency in here. It really was a screech. It was high up. And, if nothing else, I mean, low end aside, obviously low end can fatigue you, but it takes longer usually. The screeching is, you almost didn't want to work in here. And so I was definitely, I'd used other foams in the past. I hadn't used dentist foam before. So I was excited about the increased smoothness in the lower end. But I was kind of expecting that to clean up with the foam, and it did beautifully, but it also had the room feels so much more rich now in the low end than, if I think I'd put any other foam in here, I think it wouldn't feel that way. I think it would still have a little bit of the muddiness to it. But yeah, I mean, the screeching frequency is gone, and it was really high. It was piercing, and we had flutter echo before. We had a straight flutter coloration. It was, again, anybody could have heard it. It's not an engineer tweaking kind of thing. It's you would walk into the room and you would hear this just kind of disgusting echo, and that's completely gone. And that's the bare minimum, of course, of what can't be in a room. But other than that, I mean, we have a lot of smoothness. The vocals are sounding clear, and I'm happy mixing. People are happy recording. It's great, and I can't wait to get to the next stage of treatment with the drums and more units. Maybe
and
some
then
diffusion.
we're going to do some diffusion after that. And this is good practice for you people to realize that you have to use absorption first. That's the first. We have two technologies in acoustic: absorption and diffusion. That's it. We use those two technologies to manage the one thing the laws of physics give us that we don't like. That's reflections. So we use absorption and diffusion to tame and manage reflections. We need the reflections in our room because we're created or evolved that way, if you will, because we need the reflections for localization. It's part of our DNA. But in a small room, we don't need them that much because we know we're in a small room, and we can pretty much get that feeling pretty quickly. So you want to manage those reflections, but you want to do it in a way that's effortless. And a good way to do that, like we were talking before, is to simply sit with a person like we're doing right now and speak. I mean, I have a tendency to really modulate my voice, and hopefully it's not from losing my hearing. Please. I don't need that. But the bottom line here is I hope that it's more about managing the reverberation times in a nice, smooth manner that allows you to just relax and speak clearly and do all of that. Well, great. So this is the first in a series. The next video you'll get from Jesse's room, that's a great name, Jesse's room.
Nice.
The next video you get from Jesse's room will be the drum platform, and then probably we'll have the ceiling finished because I just brought him the foam for that. And then we're going to mess around with some diffusion probably for video 3. So you get all the processes in Jesse's room. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next video.